Good morning, everyone. We were doing the Spring Boot sessions for last 4 weeks, and we are at a good shape now. Hope you've all gone through um, the recorded sessions if you have missed, and gone through the code also. So I'll just go off video. Any questions so far? You have before I start today's session. Okay, we'll do this. We'll complete the two topics I have for today, and we can open for Q&A or any specific questions. We'll get started with today's session. So we were supposed to do actuator last week, but we didn't cover it. We'll do the actuator now. So Spring Boot actuator is actually the feature which the Spring Boot gives for monitoring and managing the Spring Boot application. In general, any application we need to check the health and how it is behaving. So earlier we used to write the health check or the monitoring features separately. But here in Spring Boot we are having that inbuilt, and we that is part of the actuator. So the actuator comes with endpoints, and we can monitor the application how it is doing, and we can ensure that there is no issue, or if any issue is there, it will help in debugging and bringing up that easily. So this is very much needed when we have to move the application to production. Okay, so what it gives us, the main features are the endpoints. So it allows to monitor and interact with the application. There are number of built-in endpoints, and also we can customize the endpoints also. And it gives us the metrics, that is it integrates with something called a micrometer, and we have the option of you know monitoring them using the timers, gauges, and counters, everything. Also, it gives us an audit event repository where we will be able to record and view the audit event also. Okay, so for getting the Spring Boot working, we have to add this dependency in the code. That is the Spring Boot starter actuator. So if we add this into the pom.xml, we'll be able to enable the actuator feature for the Spring Boot applications. And some of the sample endpoints which are generally used for the monitoring. So the health and info about the application, the environment, and the auto configurations which are done. So the default endpoint is the slash actuator. So if we see the Swagger, right, will be so the bank application which we saw last week. The same thing, we have enabled the actuator as the application monitoring tool. So when we hit this slash actuator
Kavita,
endpoint, yeah.
sorry, just want to know if you're sharing your screen or anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been speaking without sharing. Sorry about it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry about it. I didn't realize. Yeah. So we'll have to add the Spring Boot actuator dependency in the pom.xml, and there are a few endpoints which will be enabled. By default, the slash actuator will be enabled, and we can customize a few endpoints also. So if we see here, this Swagger UI for the banking application, bank service application, which we built last week. we will have the slash actuator as the one of the endpoint. So the moment we try this out, right, we'll be able to see that there are the authorization has been expired. One second. So it gives all the endpoints for the monitoring. What are the beans available? What are the caches available? The health. All the information will be there. So what we can do is we can copy paste this one, and we can get the information also. Sorry. Yeah. Same thing through Swagger also will be able to do that. So all the endpoints it gives, and we'll be able to check whatever is needed. Similarly, for any of the endpoints we need. So for example, if we try the env, in real time, it will show all the environments configured and all those details, the ports used, and all the system properties, everything will be there. So based on this, it will help in monitoring as well as debugging. So the default endpoint is the actuator. In case we need, some more endpoints to be shown on Swagger, right? So we can write a controller which will where we'll be able to configure them so that it will appear on the Swagger. So the health and environment which we generally use, we can write it. Configure them in the controller so that it appears on the Swagger. Otherwise, what we can do is we can hit the actuator and copy paste them and try it out. So the most commonly used one is the health. So, any application, the health check is important to show that whether it is up and running or we have some issue. So if this application is down and we try to hit this, the health check will show it is it's not found, or there's an issue. So this is a small feature, the actuator, but we'll be using it. The at least the health and the environment will be used in real time applications. Any questions? Okay. I showed this. So we'll move to the next topic, the API gateway. So we've been hearing this API gateway in different forms. For any microservice or any REST-based API calls, right? We keep hearing this API gateway term. So what is an API gateway? and why we need it, and how it is been used in real-time applications. We'll see that. Coming to API gateway, for any microservice or anything, we use the APIs, the REST-based APIs, or the WebSocket protocols, right? For accessing the microservice. So the APIs are exposed. Generally, APIs are not directly exposed to the microservice. APIs are not directly exposed to the client or the outside world. So we have what to say, a facade, or you can call a stopper, which will control the traffic, as well as regulate the calls. So that feature is called the API gateway. Also, we have another issue, like when multiple microservices are built, and we have cases where we have to test everything, and we have to share those with the clients. We don't share separate URLs with them, or the domains, or the context roots with them. We share a common one, though internally they have different ports and different naming conventions. So this API gateway will also resolve that problem. Like we'll be able to encapsulate the internal feature of how the APIs are written. So we give them a streamlined API, uh, or the domain name and the URL to be called. And internally, this API gateway will regulate the traffic to the microservices. So if you see the picture, so we have multiple microservices here. So we have the API gateway, which has been exposed to the clients. So which like one single call comes with the API being shared. So the gateway in turn resolves which microservice the call has to go. So the routing, or the traffic management, the API gateway will do, and that's based on the configurations, the API gateway. So like it acts as a single entry point to a system, like the group of microservices which we write. And also it encapsulate the internal system architecture, and it doesn't expose the ports, or the APIs internally, how it has been configured and structured. Also, we have an option to tailor the API, the domain name, or the how the API has to be shared with the client, right? So that also can be custom tailored for each client. Also, it also ensures that the other features, like the authentication, monitoring, especially the load balancing, everything has been handled by the API gateway. So the API gateway acts as a single entry point, as well as ensures that all the underlying APIs are not exposed outside, and ensures the authentication and other features are also maintained. Like in our case, what we have is, we have the localhost 8085 for the bank service. And we have the localhost 5555 for the payment service. And we call like um, one second. We call each one with a different port, and we try to access it, right? All those can be centralized with one domain name itself. In real time, this can be your application domain name and the service name. And for the second service also, it will be the application name and the service name. It need not expose the ports or any internal activity on that. So how is that achieved? For that, right, the API gateway, there are multiple ways to do an API gateway. And we have taken an example of Zool API gateway. There are many open source as well as custom made API gateways, extensively used are the cloud API gateways. So one of them is the AWS API gateway, where we configure all the domain names and the routing in the AWS console or the CLI tool. Um, the APIs are exposed outside, and they are internally routed. But for our example, right, we have just taken an Zool API gateway, which is which is an open source provided by Netflix. So for this, right, like I told, it acts as the single point entry as the front door for all the requests. So the client need not know what is your port or what is your underlying microservice which is going to give back the response. All that it needs to know is one API or the service URL which will be shared back. So in our case, the bank service as well as the payment service. So what we have done is, we've exposed the Zool API gateway service here, which is also a microservice, and internally this Zool enable Zool proxy annotation is used, which will enable the gateway for the uh, uh, service we have written here. So what we have to do is the pom.xml, we have to add this dependency, the Zool package here, so that this will be included. And this is a simple microservice, where we have just the Spring Boot application starter class, and all that it does is the redirection to the underlying microservices. So in this case, what we have the microservice bank service running and the payment service, which we saw last week, right? So the bank service is for inserting the details of the bank, and the payment service is to deduct some amount or credit some amount. So what we are doing is, the bank service is deployed on 8085, and the payment services on 5555. So internally, what we are doing is we are routing the two services. So these are the service names which are available, which are set up in the uh, each sorry each microservice, right? So that name is has to be given here correctly, so that it will route the details. Okay, so all that which is exposed to the caller or the client is this port 6666 and the service names. So what does this double star does here is all the APIs which has this prefix of bank service slash anything, it'll route it to. In case we have to redirect to anything other than which is not starting with bank service, we can also configure this way. So that by default anything under the bank service with any path it will take it. But for just for an example, I have given this way. Okay, so this configuration is very important. In AWS API Gateway also similar configuration is done using the AWS tool, the console. Okay, so we have done the configuration, and when we start, we can. I'll just stop it. I have the payment service and the bank service also running. The payment service and the bank service has already been started. So this gateway service also we will start as a Spring Boot app. So now what happens? This payment service is deployed on port 6666, and internally the calls for routing has been configured. Okay, so now what we are doing, using Postman. So ideally, any call for the services, right? That is the bank service or the payment service. We would call its explicit ports. That is the payment service on 5555 or the bank service on 8085. But what but by configuring this gateway service, there is a single port only which will be exposed, and internally we are calling the bank service with the same API URL. So now, so this is a create service. If you see the Swagger, this is the create bank service. V1 banks. Okay, this is the create bank service. So if you are trying to create a bank here, so now internally what is it is calling internally, it is calling the bank service, but it is the call has been routed through the API gateway service. We are not using the 8085 port for the bank service. So now because the authentication token has expired, we'll just give the authentication token an active one. So I gave something which is not unique. The code is not unique because it is already existing in my DB. So I will change it. So what has happened? The API service has redirected the call to the bank service using the routing what we have configured. If you see, the call has gone to the bank service. And we got the error here, duplicate entry. So the routing has happened. So now I'll try to change the value here to a unique one. Bank code must be 5 characters. Okay, so it is created now. So the routing has happened and it is created. So we can see here. Okay. So similarly, the same thing, the payment service which we had for, you know, using the amount and the transaction amount, which is residing on 5555, the same thing we can invoke using the API gateway. So this is the payment service. I'm using the API gateway port here, and I'm trying to detect an amount of 900 from the bank ID 1 and account ID 1. There is data here already, so which has an 8,000 balance. So we'll try to detect, make a transaction for 900 rupees here. So here we are not using the 5555 port for the payment service. We are trying to route it through the gateway. So we can see here the 900 is been directed. This API call is successful, and if you check the database now, I'm refreshing here. We can see the 900 transaction amount has been done. So last week when we saw this code, we were accessing these two services from as a separate microservice. But now we have grouped them and we have routed them through a single gateway. So now whatever is the thing which will be exposed to the client will be this. So we don't have to share the individual microservice URLs to them. So this configuration is very important. So we can see that the call to the payment service also has been made here. So amount deducted from the bank. This is the recent call. Any questions? So this API gateway service has been checked into the GitHub. If you get the latest and try to get the payment service and the bank service also. And when we run this, we'll be able to configure everything. So yeah. So this sample is just an idea to give you why do we need an API gateway, as well as how the routing happens. So there are many ways we can do this. The extensively used one is the AWS API gateway. So we have to follow the steps which the AWS gives, and we can route it. And as far as I know, they support the multi-region ones also. Like the AWS will be deployed on different regions, right? So that support is also being given. Okay. Before I go into the recap, today's session was a little shorter only. Any questions on the API gateway or the actuator? Okay. So if we want to just recap what we have done in the last few sessions, right? So we have come to a stage where we have written multiple microservices, and and routed the traffic through a single entry point. And a functional microservice talking to a database, and which gives a good feel of writing and deploying a microservice. But deploying a microservice here is on your local desktop, but not on a server. That will be covered in the session, the Docker and the Kubernetes session later. Okay, so I'll just recap what all we have covered. So we saw how the microservice architecture got evolved from the monolithic and the SOA one, and then the pros and cons, um, and how to build a microservice using a Spring Boot application and deploy it in your local with the inbuilt Tomcat, and how to talk or how to communicate between microservices. We have seen it through the Fin client feature. We can use REST template, but the latest one is the Fin client. And for a real time feel, we have also seen how to do DB transactions. Set up a DB. How the microservice is able to use transactions, that is save and retrieve from a database. And also we've seen the JUnit testing, which is very important for any development, and also how to mock the data. And the most important thing for any microservice, that is the security feature. So an example using the JWT authentications. We have seen that. And the actuator, and the last thing is the API gateway. So this gives a good feel of how a real-time microservice application has been developed, unit tested, deployed, and verified. Um, for real-time projects and on a large scale, what we do is we have a wider infrastructure where we have to do more configurations and setup. But this is the core aspect which is needed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kavita. These are the two topics that you wanted to talk today, right?
Yes, Kadir.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to thank Kavita and Murali and Wavelabs for sponsoring and supporting this program. And I'm very happy that we had consistently almost, approximately around 20 people attending this program. Thanks a lot for that. The second thing that I wanted to also share is please keep looking on the job channels and things like that. There is a requirement, from Wavelabs as well to recruit few employees in Canada, right? So there is going to be some opportunities coming up from Wavelabs. Keep your eyes open, and also keep your WhatsApp group open if some of the profiles fit you guys. Please feel free to apply for them. Wavelabs is trying to establish their presence in Canada and wanted to grow here in Canada. So keep your eyes open on our Testoper job channels, because most of the promotion that we would do for the, they would probably use our platform Testoper to identify right people if it is applicable, depending upon their requirement for the job needs, right? So I wanted to first of all heartily thank Kavita, Murali, and Wavelabs for supporting this program. And I also know that Kavita and Wavelabs planning to support our next program, which is going to start on August 7th. So whatever that you have learned today in this program since last 5 to 6 weeks focuses on how to build a microservice-based app as a developer. Now, the second program on August 7th, Wavelabs will be delivering, will focus on, from the DevOps point of view, how you actually deploy, maintain, and monitor them, if I'm not wrong, right, Kavita? So
Yeah.
don't miss that, because it's very important that you have the continuation of what you have learned as a developer, as well as how to deploy them and maintain them. It's a continuation. So make sure that you go to the Eventbrite and register for that program, which is starting on August 5th or 7th. You will look it up in Eventbrite. I'm pretty sure you'll see that. So number of great opportunities and great support Wavelabs is being doing for it, um, to grow the community in Canada and help the people like you guys to become relevant and be a future workforce and be successful in your career and so on. There is background noise. Um, yeah, it was coming from Greg. I kind of muted it. So just keep your eyes open, and there's a lot of opportunities that we can work together in this nonprofit. Like I always say, Testoper is a nonprofit. It's not a profit organization. It is run by all of us to support each other, to learn from each other, and grow together in our career, intrapreneurship, and entrepreneurship aspiration. And that's the vision and mission of Testoper. And we have been diligently doing that for many months now, and we tend to continue to do that. The best support that you can do is, if at all you wanted to help, the best support you wanted to do is, in addition to the learning, be active in the community, right? Be active in the Microsoft Teams, share your experiences, support other people. And if you have in your company any job opportunities open, post them there, give reference to the people to get the jobs. So, you can help each other, the jointly helping each other. I don't know how many of you are citizens, how many of you are PR. If you learn a little bit more about Canadian culture there as a citizen, right? A Canadian citizen, you are supposed to do few things. Most important things is like jury, following the law. And in that list of things, one of the things that you're supposed to do is to volunteer and help others, right? So please do take that seriously and help others and grow the community and grow the Canada as a whole and also as an individual as a whole. That's my sincere advice to you all. Let's help each other to learn, not only learn, but also grow in our career and be successful. That's my final words for today from the Testoper point of view. I'll open the floor for any questions from anyone to Kavita. And also open the floor for you guys, if you want to jump in and thank Kavita for whatever the learnings that you have done, feel free to do that. Let's keep the floor open for next 5 minutes and then we will close it. Please go ahead if you have any questions.
All right. Thanks, Kavita. Thanks, Maury, for this great session. It's really been helpful. So my ask is, I know this is a lot to take in. You've covered a lot the last few weeks, and you know we have a lot of other commitments, but we'll try as much as possible to go back to the code to look at what you've done. I really appreciate that. So my ask would be, like Kada mentioned in the beginning, if we could reach out anytime we have any issues, any questions, to just maybe send a chat to you, maybe in the group, so that when you're free, you can respond. That would be very kind of you, because one of the projects we're working on Testoper is to collaborate with different people that could help us in our technical skills. Some of the things we don't have is technical skills. So, but we're still trying to learn, so that we want to get a product done before the end of the year, so that as we have issues, we can reach out, get solutions to those questions that we ask. That would be great. But in summary, I just want to really thank you for this, because this is what we are going to be using for our projects. Thank you.
Yes, Greg. You could post your questions, or the problem statement. We'll be able to respond back. And if needed, we can connect when the time zone works out for us. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. I think Laura has raised her hand. Kader, Laura, I can see.
I was on mute. Sorry, I apologize. Thanks, Kader and Kavita, for hosting today's session. I'm not a developer, but I found today's session very helpful in terms of understanding the backend processes of the banks. And I know that you walked over about the AWS API and the Zoo Gateway and the Swagger IO. Do you have any preference with working and utilizing those tools as opposed to other tools? And if so, what kind of motivates you to work and use those tools as opposed to others?
Laura, from a POC perspective, we went with open source and which tools are easily configurable. And what we are comfortable also, what we are aware of. But ideally, when we are working for customers, right, they come with some preference in few cases, like so that it is robust and it will be in line with their enterprise architecture. So in those cases, what we do is, because the concept is the same, we just get customized to those tools and we use them. Like for example, most of the customers have migrated to AWS. So it is more like we get comfortable with the AWS features and start using them. But there are a few customers who are okay with open source tools and go ahead with them.
Thank you. So you find that even though the sector bank deals with highly private secure data, and they are very keen on keeping data on their local sites, they're still open to using open source, and you think that's going to be the trend with the banks as well?
Especially with the banking sector, right? They generally try to avoid open source. But the decision is taken at an architecture level. Okay, so it goes through a decision making process. But generally they prefer enterprise and paid applications, at least what I have seen.
Okay, thank you.
Uh,
Thank you for
uh, Sorry, go ahead, Laura. You had follow-on question?
No, I said thank you for answering the questions and for sharing the experience.
Perfect. And team, you all know, those who have attended out of 5 sessions, 4 sessions, you also get a certificate of attendance for this particular program. And you know where it is stored. And normally after 2 weeks of the program, we create the certificate and we post it in the Microsoft Teams Codathon channel. And inside the Codathon channel, files, certificates, you will find your certificates if you have qualified to get that certificate, right? So you can always look up for that. Don't forget. And Murli, I have a question for you. Which email address that you use for Testoper, Murli? Because I see a lot of Murlis with different email address. I will add you into the Testoper projects channel as well, so you can answer some questions for those who are trying to build their products.
Sure, Kat.
Which
so
email?
the email is kasturi12.
MK Kasturi12, right? Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah, that's
all right. I've added you, Murli. I think you are already there. I think, yeah, good. I've added you there. So you should also have, in addition to the Testoper community channel access, you should also have a Testoper project access. So for those who do not know what is Testoper project, it's another program that Testoper community conducts. It's basically to help non-tech people to become an entrepreneur, to learn a lot of things related to the entrepreneurship, how, product management life cycle, soft skills like leadership skills and all those kind of things. And in parallel, develop their technical skills, come up with an idea and build a product before end of the year, right? So it's a whole year long program, and it happens on Fridays 6 to 7. You can always look at the Eventbrite. You have not lost it, even though you have not attended the previous 20 sessions, but you can always join in between and you can continue your learning. And we have like 3 teams who are trying to build 3 different. I have 3 different ideas to build that. Okay, so just wanted to let you know that. Ariel is asking, will you post a link to join? So Ariel, the answer to your question is, please go to Eventbrite and search Testoper, and you will see the list of programs, and you can register and join. It's pretty straightforward. I think that's what you are asking, Ariel, if I'm not wrong. Okay. Any other questions from anyone before we close the call today? All right. So the last final note I wanted to say is, yes, can you please post a link to that page? You mean Eventbrite? So you can just do eventbrite.ca and then search Testoper if you want. You can always click this link, testoper.eventbrite.com, and then you will see the list of programs.
Kader,
okay.
I have a quick question, Kader.
Sure.
If we still have time.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Kavita, if we want to start with a new service, like if I want to add another service to this one, we have already bank and payment services. If I want to come with a shopping cart service, let us say, how that architecture will be done and where we have to start?
So the shopping cart service will be another microservice. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just share my screen again. Just to brief you, so that you get an idea. It's become slow. So what we do is, able to see now, right? Okay. Yeah. So now I have multiple microservice here. So for example, we'll write another service like a cart service or shopping cart service. Okay, which will be another Spring Boot application. Okay. So whatever is your shopping cart service going to do, you will give all those features. You write your own endpoints, and then whether it has to talk to a DB or to a or any of the existing service. So for example, the payment service or the bank service. Okay. So, and then the final thing will be in the API gateway service, you give the routing here.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the life cycle for any service is the same. Only thing internally, the functionality and how you are going to organize the service will vary. So ideally, building a Spring Boot application, the logic will be the same.
Okay.
Whether it talks to a database or whether it talks to an other service, it varies.
Maybe a connecting question, Kavita. Like for example, in that service, we had to define the mandatory headers and body, right? Where that will be done?
I think there was some network connection. We lost Kavita Madhu. So your question is so powerful, it disconnected the network connection for her, I think. Murli, do you have an answer for Madhu?
Yeah.
Kavita is back.
Yeah. So we can define them in the control.
Madhu, you can
So
mute
all
it.
the
Background noise. Yeah, I muted Madhu. Go ahead, Murli, answering this question. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, we can define all those in our control. So the API we in REST control, right? At that place we can define the headers which we are going to client. So there we can put an attribute without false. There you can put that. So it will be mandatory.
I think Kavita is also back. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the question? Sorry. Yeah.
Madhu, do you want to repeat it? Unmute it and repeat it. I muted you. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, Kadir. Yeah, thanks for that. Kavita, what I was asking, even Murali tried explaining that is good, but the question is, if mandatory headers and body has to be defined and where it will be usually done?
It is at the controllers.
Okay.
The configuration of mandatory, that is needed true or not, will be given there. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Sorry for asking one more question, maybe. This JWT token, how do we define the expiration time for that JW token? Like some of them will lie for 20 minutes, some of them will lie for 8 hours and so on.
Yeah, we have the code, where we are generating the token, right? So there we are giving the token validity. If you go to the bank service, there will be a class called JWT token, token util. So there we have set the expiry time.
Oh, got you. Okay.
We can configure that also, but here we have set it here.
I have a question.
Yeah, Greg. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. I know the backend, the Spring Boot is for the backend. So I don't know if you're familiar with the front end. So what I want to ask is, now if I want to create a front end for this bank services, I have all my microservices with Spring Boot. I want to create the front end. Will I also create like the same structure for the backend when I'm doing the front end? For example, if I explain, for example, I have the bank services, the payment services, the card services. Will I also do the same for the front end so that I can call the back end?
Yeah. So what happens is, we will have a microservice which is specific for a front end. That can be written in any of the UI tech stack. It can be a Node.js or Angular, anything, and that will be exposed as a web service. Sorry, a microservice. And that internally will talk to these services for when after the UI is rendered, right? On submit or anything, that will talk to these services, or even for retrieving data, it will talk to these services.
Okay.
So the UI developers will decide what should be the tech stack based on the requirement. Like if it has to support multiple devices, they decide a tech stack. Otherwise, they'll go with a simple UI stack. Um, the decision is made that way.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. So guys, we are top of the hour, and I know that you have lots of questions. That's why we have this collaboration channel, Microsoft Teams. Please feel free to tag Kavita and ask questions in the Testoper Codathon channel. You know where it is. And the last point I'd like to say is thank you for joining every one of you to support Kavita. I thank Kavita. I didn't thank you guys because I got to thank you because you are a continuous learners, and continuous learning is something that we wanted to seriously support at Testoper community. Thanks a lot for joining and supporting Kavita. And once again, thanks a lot, Kavita, Murli, and Wave Labs for sponsoring this event and conducting this very successfully. So with that, let's close the session, and I would like to give a floor to Kavita, an honor to say bye to you all, and we are good to close. Guys, have a happy weekend, and Kavita, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Kader. Thanks everyone for the wonderful sessions we had. It was a good learning from our end also. We've been up to speed with whatever we wanted to do, and hope this was helpful. And let's keep this learning going on, and we'll collaborate through the Teams channel, and we'll touch base in the next sessions. Looking forward for them. And thanks, Murli. Thanks, Kader.
Thank you. Guys, have a wonderful weekend. So that brings the session, 6-week-long session to an end. I hope you all learned. Have a wonderful session. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.